husband prospective, walking through fire together. Our multiple myeloma journey by Eugene Kendrick. The dedication to my wife, whose strength became my compass, whose courage taught me what brave truly looks like, and whose love made every hard day worth facing. This is our story. But you are the heart of it. A note from the author. My name is Eugene. I am a husband who sat in a plastic chair in a hospital waiting room, more times than I can count, who learned words like M protein and plasma cells and bone marrow biopsy, not from a textbook, but from desperation, and who watched the woman that I love face something neither of us ever imagined we would have to face. I wrote this to give my perspective as a husband, B. Falafel. And because somewhere out there, I know there is another husband, another wife, another partner sitting in a waiting room of their own, holding a paper cup of bad coffee, and trying to hold themselves together, who needs to know they are not alone. It is simply what happened to us honestly, imperfectly, and with all the love I am capable of putting into words. If it helps even one person feel a little less afraid, a little less isolated, then every word was worth writing. This is our journey. This is how we walked through fire together. Section 1. The diagnosis. When the world stopped, it started with the doctor who was paying attention. My wife's primary care physician is the kind of thorough, detail-oriented doctor that every patient deserves, but not everyone is fortunate enough to have. During a routine visit, she noticed something that could have been easy to overlook. My wife's protein levels were rising, climbing higher than they should have been. She did not wait and see. She leaned forward and told my wife plainly, "You need to see an oncologist as soon as possible." We did not wait. We made the call, we kept the appointment, and we went together. The oncologist ran his tests, blood work, imaging, a bone marrow biopsy. He was methodical and unhurried, the kind of doctor whose calm you try to borrow for yourself. And then he sat across from us and told us what the results had revealed. My wife had myeloma cancer, a multiple myeloma, a cancer of the plasma cells, the infection-fighting cells that live inside the bone marrow. In myeloma, those cells mutate and multiply out of control, crowding out the healthy ones and producing an abnormal protein called M protein that accumulates in the blood, quietly damaging organs and bones from within. Most people have never heard of it. I certainly had not. The word landed in that room like something dropped from a very great height, and I felt this type of emptiness. My wife was immobilized by the news. That is the only word I have for what I watched happen to her. That immobilized. She is not a woman easily shaken. But the weight of what had just been said pressed down on her in a way that left no room for composure, and tears came. The oncologist, why the word, reached across his desk and handed her tissues. He looked at her steadily and told her, "This is treatable. There is a path forward. You have options." He said it with the quiet certainty of a man who meant every syllable, and I held on to those words like a rope thrown to a drowning man. That evening, we drove home to Fort Worth in a kind of stunned silence that neither of us knew how to break. When we walked through our door, we did what we have always done. When life becomes too large for human hands alone, we prayed. We stood together, and we lifted her name before God. We quoted scriptures of healing, speaking the promises we had been given long before that day out loud into that room, into that fear, into that diagnosis. There is something that steadies you in prayer. When the ground beneath you has shifted, it does not remove the mountain, but it reminds you of the one who can. Early the next morning, I leashed the dogs Petty and Hosea and walked out into the quiet streets of our neighborhood, and I prayed. I asked God, specifically and plainly, to add years to my wife's life. I did not know, in that moment, that she was home praying almost the exact same prayer at almost the exact same hour. We had not planned it. We had not spoken of it. It simply happened, two hearts reaching toward heaven with the same words, at the same time, moved by the same spirit. She told me later that morning that she had prayed for years to be added to her life. At nearly the same moment I had walked those streets, asking God for the very same thing. I felt something settle deep inside me that I had no purely rational explanation for. It was not coincidence. I do not believe in coincidences like that. It was confirmation, a whisper from God, that He had already heard us before we had even finished speaking, that He was already in this with us, that we were not facing this alone, and never would be. That was the moment fear lost its grip on me. We still had hard days ahead, long days of treatment and uncertainty and exhaustion, but we had something stronger than fear to carry us through it. We had our faith, we had each other, and we had made our decision. We were going to fight. together, and we were not going to fight alone. Section 2. Entering the battle. Treatment begins. The oncology team wasted no time. Within weeks, my wife began what is called induction therapy, the initial phase of treatment designed to drive the cancer down to its lowest possible level before more intensive treatment could follow. Her regimen was a combination of known drugs, each targeting the cancer from a different angle. She received her injections at the clinic and took them on a carefully timed schedule. We set many calendars date to keep up with all the appointments and did a routine blood pressure check-in. We built our entire life around that schedule. For months, our world contracted to the distance between our house and the cancer center. I drove her to every single appointment. I sat beside her during every infusion, sometimes working remotely, sometimes just being there, watching the 4 drip and trying to look like a man who was not in fear of the unknown. The treatment rooms became strangely familiar, the same chairs, the same faces cycling through on their own difficult schedules. You nod to each other. You share small, exhausted smiles. You do not need to say anything. You all know exactly where you are and why. The side effects were real, and they were relentless. Fatigue settled over her like a second skin, not ordinary tiredness, but the bone-deep, gravity-weighted exhaustion that chemotherapy produces, the kind that makes walking from the bedroom to the kitchen feel like an accomplishment worth making. Neuropathy, tingling, sometimes painful numbness in the hands and feet or legs, and not being able to be touched without having pain. Nausea came and went. Appetite was unreliable. There were days she barely ate. I learned that sometimes just sitting with her, at times as I silently prayed, was the most loving thing I could do. I also became her researcher, her scheduler, her part-time medication manager, and her advocate. These were simply the things that needed to be done, and I stepped into them because I wanted to carry part of what she was facing. She should not have to worry about details like that while fighting for her life, and loving someone means filling the gaps they cannot fill right now. There were also moments of unexpected grace in those early months. A nurse who always remembered to call my wife by her last name, who asked about her needs and how she was truly feeling. An oncology social worker who did not just stop by to offer encouragement to the patient, but took the time to ask about the family as well. Section 3. The transplant. Walking into the unknown. If induction therapy was the long December of treatment, the stem cell transplant was the summit, the most grueling, most challenging, most profoundly hopeful part of the entire journey. It is the standard of care for eligible multiple myeloma patients, and when the oncologist told us she was a good candidate, we felt the complicated mix of emotions that seems to define every milestone in this disease. Relief that the option existed, and dread at what it would require. The process began weeks before the transplant itself, with stem cell collection, a procedure called apheresis. To harvest enough of her own healthy stem cells, she received daily injections of a growth factor medication that stimulated her bone marrow to overproduce stem cells and release them into her bloodstream. Then, in one session, she was connected to a machine that drew her blood out through one arm, separated and collected the stem cells, and returned the rest of the blood through the other arm. She sat in that chair for several hours in one day. I sat beside her. We talked. We were quiet. We watched television on a small screen mounted to the wall. The nurses were extraordinary. The collected cells were frozen and preserved, ready for what came next. Those weeks surrounding the transplant were some of the most physically demanding. She was enduring injections, collection, and the slow, exhausting countdown toward transplant day. I traveled nearly 80 miles round trip every single day for 3 weeks, working remotely while still being present for her at every critical moment. I would drive the long stretch of highway in the morning, work with my laptop open, and my heart somewhere else entirely, then turn around and make the drive back so I could sit beside her when she needed company more than conversation. It was tiring, yes, but love has a way of making sacrifice feel like purpose, and I used that time as prayer time with God. Every mile felt like a small offering, a way of saying without words, I am here. I am not going anywhere. We will walk this part of the fire together and face whatever comes next. In the midst of all that strain, God sent moments of strength through the people who love her most. One of the most powerful moments came when her sisters, Rhonda and Quida, traveled to the hospital in Dallas to visit her. The instant they stepped into the room, she lit up, her whole spirit lifted. Their presence encouraged her deeply, giving her a renewed sense of strength, support, and closeness that only sisters can provide. It was as if their love wrapped around her, reminding her that she was not fighting alone. Their visit became a spark of emotional energy right when she needed it most, which was crucial, because what came next was high-dose chemotherapy followed by a conditioning regimen using a drug called melphalan, administered in very large doses specifically designed to destroy the cancer remaining in her bone marrow. In the language of oncology, this treatment was ablative. It essentially wiped out her immune system. She felt terrible. There is no gentler way to say it. The nausea was severe. The fatigue was total. Her body was in a kind of controlled freefall, stripped down to almost nothing so that something new could be built in its place. Transplant day, the day her own stem cells were returned to her, is often called a patient's second birthday. I watched that bag of cells drip into her foreline. I thought, this is what hope looks like. It does not always look the way you expect. Sometimes it looks like a small plastic bag of golden liquid, and a doctor's quiet voice saying, "Here we go." She spent several weeks in the hospital, during which her body had to accept the reinfused cells and begin rebuilding a functioning immune system. Her counts, her white blood cells, red blood cells, and platelets dropped to zero and stayed there for what felt like an eternity. I brought things like books that she might have the energy to read, but might find comfort in having nearby. As it was during the Christmas holiday and New Year, I brought her a Christmas tree and an overflow of gifts. I talked to her on the phone in the evenings when visiting hours ended. I told her I loved her so many times in those weeks that the words began to feel like a kind of prayer, which I suppose is exactly what they were. And then, one morning, the numbers began to move. Her white count ticked upward by a decimal point so small that a person who did not understand what they were looking at would have dismissed it entirely. The transplant team did not dismiss it. The nurse smiled. The doctor nodded. Engraftment was beginning. The cells were taking hold. Her body was rebuilding itself, one invisible increment at a time. These days were a progress. It continued to always pray, and thanks God for her good health and recovery. Section 4. Healing. The long road back. Coming home from the hospital after the transplant was one of the strangest, most tender days of my life. She walked through our front door and stood in the entry for a moment, looking at the familiar rooms as if seeing them for the first time. In a way, she was. Vrofer, everything had shifted: the light, the air, the quality of ordinary things. Our apartment was the same. We were not. Recovery from a stem cell transplant is measured not in days, but in months. Her immune system had to rebuild itself from the ground up, which meant that the world was still a dangerous place, not in the way it had been before diagnosis, but in the quieter, more pervasive way of a person whose body cannot yet fully defend itself. Crowds were out. Sick people were to be avoided. Hand washing became a liturgy. We kept the house meticulously clean. We stayed close to home. We became very comfortable with our own company, which, it turned out, was not difficult at all. The fatigue of recovery was different from the fatigue of chemotherapy, less acute, but somehow more patient, more insistent. It settled in for the long haul. She would have a good morning, feel almost herself, and then the afternoon would arrive, and the energy would simply drain out of her, like water from a bathtub. She learned to listen to her body in ways she never had before. She learned to rest without guilt. She learned that healing is not a performance. It does not require an audience or a schedule. It happens at its own pace, on its own terms. I learned to follow her lead. When she wanted to talk about what we had been through, we talked. When she did not, we watched old movies or sat on the back porch and watched the evening settle over the neighborhood. I learned that not every silence needs to be filled, and not every hard feeling needs to be processed out loud. Sometimes love means simply being present physically, quietly, without agenda. The milestones were small and enormous simultaneously. The first afternoon she walked around the block without stopping to rest. I walked beside her and did not say anything about how long it took, because it did not matter. First time she cooked a meal, standing at the stove in our kitchen with the radio on just watching TV, and I watched from the doorway and felt a sense of happiness that had been clenched for months, and I was so grateful to hear it again and thanked the Lord within my heart. We talked sometimes about what her body felt like during her season of recovery. We learned that ordinary is not small. A regular weekday morning with the dog snoring on the couch, along with the birds singing, is a gift of the highest order. Section 5. The call we prayed for. Cancer-free. The post-transplant evaluation, the scans, the blood work, the bone marrow biopsy would tell us how the cancer had responded to everything that her body has been through, was scheduled days after her transplant. We had been told to expect this evaluation. We had known it was coming, It had circled it in our minds for weeks. And still, when the day arrived, Pam and I was ready for the good report. We sat in the oncologist's office, with the same pale walls, the same landscape print on the wall, the same fluorescent hum above us, and we waited. Pam was still and composed in the way she always is, and she is most attentive, because her courage runs deeper than her fear. I was praying in the spirit quietly. The oncologist came in, sat down, and looked at us with an expression I had not seen from him before. He said the words carefully, precisely, with the measured warmth of a man who has delivered this news before, and knows how much it means to be very precise with the response, then said, "No detectable protein, no evidence of active disease. The treatment had worked." I do not have adequate language for what happened next inside me. There is a kind of joy that is too large for the body to contain gracefully. It comes out sideways, in ways you do not expect. My wife's expression was amazing, overflowed with joy. What we have been given is time remission, hope, the gift of more mornings together, and we choose to receive that gift with open hands. We celebrated on the way home, and Pam called our children. We sat in our apartment giving God all the glory. The whole story was already written on our faces every hard night, every frightened morning, every moment of grace along the way. We walked through fire, and here we were, on the other side of it, together. Section 6. The Maintenance. Chapter 1 Year and Counting. Life after the transplant, and the complete response is not a return to the life before diagnosis. It is something new shaped by everything we have been through, informed by a knowledge of our own fragility that we did not have 1 year ago, and guided by a clarity about what matters that is perhaps the most unexpected gift this entire ordeal has given us. My wife began maintenance therapy shortly after the post-transplant evaluation. Maintenance therapy for multiple myeloma typically involves a lower, sustained dose of one of the drugs used during induction. In her case, the goal is not aggressive treatment but vigilance, keeping any residual disease suppressed, extending remission for as long as possible, and monitoring closely for any signs that the cancer is beginning to stir again. She takes her medication every morning without complaint. We watch her labs with the attentiveness of people who know what it means when the numbers change. But we also live. This is the thing I want to be very clear about, because I think people sometimes imagine that a life shaped by cancer is a life diminished, a life lived in shadow. It is not. It is, if anything, a life lived more deliberately than before. We are more intentional about our time. We say yes more readily to the things that matter, to family gatherings, to the grandchildren. There is nothing like a brush with mortality to clarify your sense of what is worth your time and what is not. Our priorities have reshuffled in ways that feel permanent. Things that used to feel urgent, small stresses, minor inconveniences, the ordinary frictions of daily life, has no power over us as we continue to pray and believe. We are slower to anger and faster to forgive. We hold things more lightly, except for each other, whom we hold more tightly than ever. We have become, I think, more grateful people, not performatively, not as a posture, but in the quiet and daily way that is the only kind of gratitude that truly lasts, and believe in God. 1 year's out. As we stand today, on a Sunday afternoon in July, with the summer heat pressing against the windows, and the rest of our life spread out ahead of us, like something precious and uncertain, and completely, irreplaceably ours. Section 7. Lessons from the Journey. What love really means. If I had known on the day of the diagnosis what I know now. But things come up in life where you learn as you go, imperfectly and sometimes painfully, and you do the best you can with what you have on any given day. What follows are the things I learned, the hard-won, lived-in lessons that I would offer to any husband, wife, partner, or family member walking a road that looks anything like the one we walked. You are allowed to be scared. Caregivers are expected to be strong, and that expectation, often self-imposed, is a trap. Fear does not make you a bad caregiver. It makes you a human being who loves someone deeply. Name it, acknowledge it, at least to yourself. Pretending it is not there does not make it go away. It just means you are carrying it alone, in the dark, which is the hardest possible way to carry anything. Ask for help, and accept it when it comes. People want to help. They genuinely do. Our church pastor prayed for us. Our neighbors offered to run errands. Our children were there and present. Let them. If people love you back, accepting help is not weakness, it is wisdom. You cannot pour from an empty vessel, and the people who love you do not want to watch you run into the ground. Take care of yourself so you can take care of them. This is the piece of advice every caregiver has heard, and almost no caregiver actually follows consistently. Sleep matters. Eating matters. Your own doctor's appointments matter. At various points during her treatment, I had some physical challenges also, as I realized that in order to fully help my wife, I had to also take care of myself. The most selfless thing you can do for someone who needs you is to maintain yourself well enough then you can actually show up when they can. Cancer takes so much away from its patient's control, certainty, physical capability, the simple freedom of not thinking about illness every single day. One of the most important things I learned was to be attentive to the moments when needed, such as a time like this. She always patient, allowing room for God to move in her body fully. Celebrate every small win. Do not save your celebrations for the major milestones. Good lab results deserve acknowledgement. A day without nausea deserves celebration. A walk around the block, a meal that was actually enjoyed, a night of real sleep, these are all victories, and they are all worth naming out loud. Joy, practiced in small doses, is surprisingly sustaining as God continues to prove himself strong. Faith, community, and communication are lifelines. I do not know how people walk this road without faith, though I know they do, with tremendous courage. For us, our faith was the framework that held everything else in place. It did not remove fear or explain the unfairness of illness, but it gave us a place to put our grief and a community of people who carried us when we could not carry ourselves. Communication, honest, patient, consistent communication between us was equally essential and critical in such a difficult as this. Love is a decision made every morning. This may be the most important thing I can say. Love, in the romantic sense, the feeling, the warmth, the ease of early partnership, is beautiful. But it is not what sustains a couple through something like this. What sustains you is the decision to love, the choice made again every morning, to show up, to stay, to do the next hard thing together, even when you are exhausted and frightened and do not know what you are doing. That decision, repeated 10,000 times over the course of a long illness, is love in its truest, most enduring form, and it is available to every one of us, every single day. You're not alone. For peaceful for reading this and you recognize yourself in any part of it. If you are the one sitting in the waiting room, or the one in the hospital bed, or the one lying awake at 3 a.m. with a laptop and a heart full of fear, I want to speak to you directly, because you are the reason I wrote this. You are not alone. Whatever specific version of this road you are walking, whatever the cancer, whatever the treatment, whatever the prognosis, you are not alone in fear, the exhaustion, the impossible hope, the grief, the love. There are thousands of people walking roads just like yours, right now, today. Some of them are further along than you. Some of them are just starting out. All of them know what it feels like to be in exactly the place where you are standing. Hope is real. I know that can feel like an empty thing to say when the situation is dark. But I am not offering you hope as a platitude. I am offering it as a testimony, as the account of a man who sat across from a doctor, who said, multiple myeloma, and thought the world had ended, and who now sits, watching my wife tender flowers in the July heat, alive and present and herself, and knows with every cell in her body that hope was never empty. It was always the truest thing in the room. Take care of each other. Ask for help. Rest when you must and fight when you must. Let the people who love you carry some of the weight. And trust even when trust is the hardest thing. Love and patience is the most powerful medicine either of you will ever have. We are rooting for you, all of us who have walked this road before. We are rooting for you with everything we have. Eugene, written with love, in honor of my wife, and for everyone still walking through fire.